Hi, my name is Sarah Dougherty. I'm an instructor and a writer here at the Art of Education. I also spend my time coordinating the visual arts program for Des Moines Public Schools, and I'm the local program director for the Turnaround Arts Initiative, also for Des Moines Public Schools. We're going to take some time today to talk about formative assessment and ways to make it fun and informative for both you and your students. So I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking fast assessments, fun assessments in the art room. It can't be done. Well, today I'm going to give you a few ways to try those things. Let's start with some definitions. I'm not today going to be talking about diagnostic assessments necessarily. Diagnostic assessments are given before instruction. They're kind of a pre-test, a chance to see what students know before you've taught them. I'm also not talking really about summative assessments. Summative assessments come at the end of learning. It's the sum game of everything you've taught and they've learned. Today we're really going to be talking about formative assessments, those assessments that happen in the middle of learning and instruction. You teach a little bit, you stop, you measure the effectiveness of your teaching and how well students are grasping, and then you both adjust to meet your learning goals. So why give formative assessments? Here's 3 great reasons. Formative assessments give both students and teachers an idea of where they are in relation to a learning goal. Formative assessment gives both students and teachers a chance to improve before a summative grade or assessment is issued. And formative assessments can act as a piece of evidence for student proficiency levels. I know we've all had that chance in our classroom to look back at students learning and say, I swear I taught that, or I'm sure I covered that. And by the time you're asking yourself those questions, that project is over, that unit is done, and when we don't see students so often, we're moving on. So formative assessments happen in the middle of learning so that you can be sure you're hitting your learning goals with your students. So who says formative assessments are so great? Grant Wiggins, Rick Wormley, Rick DeFore, and Rick Stiggins. By the way, that's a whole lot of Ricks. Either way, these guys right now are hot in education. They're big in PLCs, in assessment. These are kind of some go-to names in terms of educational research about assessment and what works. These guys are saying do it, and their voices we can trust. So after all that, where does the fun part come in? I'm sure you're still wondering. Let's just take a quick formative assessment of our own. Which of these classroom activities could serve as a formative assessment? All of them? None of them? Okay, I admit it. I tricked you a little bit. All of the above. Any of those things could serve as a formative assessment activity. Any activity that gives the students an opportunity to independently show what they know so you both know next steps. You know, if we're going to do this kind of stuff, we might as well make it entertaining. We could do this whole thing with just a bubble test or a student reflection, but that's not going to get you excited and it's not going to keep your students engaged. So I'm going to give you, starting with number 8 here, 8 great ways that are easy and quick to assess your students in a fun and formative way. So number 8, it's a game called What Is It? Gamifying anything will be much more engaging to your students. The idea of the game What Is It is that you show one example and two or more non-examples of the concept you're learning about. Ask students to identify the correct example. You can have students use a pencil and paper. You can use clickers if you have those in your classroom, or whiteboards that kids can hold up to record their answers. Just make a quick tally of who gets it and who doesn't. By the way, all of these can be done on the back of their current artwork. No extra paper. They've already got pencils out a lot of the time. Here's this example of how you might play What Is It? Which of these shows the painting technique called impasto? Why? You could run several of these. You could just run one, but it's a quick way right at the beginning of class, right at the end, or even in the middle for students to stop, demonstrate what they know, and for you to record that. Number 7, something I call little lyricists. Ask students to write a song, poem, or mnemonic device to learn a process or a list. Example, slip and score, sticks it more. Another option, have students perform their songs for the class or put together a study guide of all of the mnemonic devices or little songs that kids have used to help them remember art concepts. Number 6, what do you know, Joe? Ask students to use the first 5 minutes of class to answer the question, what do you know about blank? Whatever it is you're learning about. What do you know about the Impressionists? What do you know about clay construction principles? With a short time frame, students will write what immediately comes to mind or has engaged them the most. You'll know where your teaching has been the strongest and the weakest. They'll automatically write those things in that short time frame that have stuck in their brain the most. There you'll be able to find holes in teaching and understanding. Number 5, so simple, make a list. Direct students to create a list pertaining to the content they've been learning. List the top 5 ways to build with clay. List 3 artists working in an abstract style. Make a list of 3 changes you've made to your work. You know, this is another one that's so simple to do right on the back of a piece of artwork, on a scrap of paper, in their artist journals if you have them keep journals. Number 4, extra, extra. Have students write a headline for a story about your current lesson, or even just that day in class. Ask that they include an illustration. When possible, I love to give students different modes for demonstrating their understanding. This is a great example of that. You do a little writing, you get kids who might not feel as comfortable expressing themselves through writing the opportunity to do a drawing. Students could do both, and you might even give students the option of doing just one or the other. Make sure you explain the idea of a headline in a newspaper, though, the most important information in the fewest words. I think this is a good time to talk about teaching kids how to take these assessments. You can't assume that they know how to write a headline. You have to give them a little mini lesson about what's entailed. Number 3, the gallery walk. This one requires a little bit more setup, but it's easy because it should be about the material you're already working with. So set up several stations pertaining to your lesson objectives and ask students to write a sentence about the significance of each station. Warning, this means students actually get up and move around the room during an assessment. Be aware that's going to feel different and look different, but what more engaging way, rather than a set and get or sitting down to write, you have kids up, moving around, and engaging with materials. So examples are, and I'm using the clay example again here, on a table you might have a poorly attached slab vessel. You might have a coil pot. You might have a bowl of slip. Going around and having them write a sentence about the things that they're seeing and why they're important or how they pertain to the lesson you've been teaching. One of my favorites, number 2, tweet it. Twitter is an amazing educational tool. Direct students to write a tweet about your current lesson and have them use Twitter's limitations. There are 40 characters, and write a hashtag about today's lesson. Here's the cool thing. Your Twitter board can be up in your room. You can use dry erase or laminated paper, and it can constantly be refreshed. So you make that Twitter board and put it up in your room. You can actually start a Twitter feed for your class and have kids tweet and share it with you, or just use the guidelines for an exit slip on the back of the paper. Either way, the idea is to kind of help their thinking through limitation. That's an artistic practice that I think we can all relate to. And number 1, one of my favorites, storyboard. Have students storyboard a process or a concept and limit them to a certain number of frames. Labels and captions can be optional or encouraged. Again, another one of those ways to hit kids who might not have those writing proficiency levels that you'd like, or students who are English language learners. Being able to draw or illustrate their thoughts and their understanding of concepts helps both of you kind of know where they're at in a more realistic way. It's great for checking on learning and classroom procedures too. Have them illustrate or storyboard your cleanup procedure. Just like art concepts, it's a good idea to know where your kids are at with how we operate in an art studio. So how do you collect this data in these fun and formative assessments? First, I make a spreadsheet, and I have my roster of student names, and I have the concepts. And then as we learn and as we take the formative assessments on each of these concepts, I just do a quick check, yes or no. There's no degree of whether they're getting it or not at this point. This is just a quick snapshot of learning. I just mark an X next to their names if they get it and no X if they don't. You can see that this is how I work with the data. Alejandro is doing great. He needs a little bit of challenge. Ahmed needs some help with a lot of concepts. He's not been able to grasp the concepts for 1, 2, and 4. Ahmed and I need some time together. Obviously, and this is where I come in, my teaching, I need to redo something about the way I teach concept number 4. Only one person, a high flyer, got it. That doesn't tell me that there's something wrong with the students learning. It tells me there's something wrong with my teaching. Those are the two kind of great things that happen when you formatively assess. And here's the best thing, really, is that this comes in the middle of a lesson. I have plenty of time now, a day, even 2 days, to go back, reteach, and intervene with some kids who need some help, and offer kids like Alejandro some challenges to really push him because he's obviously meeting all of our grade level objectives. So using formative assessments helps you and your students meet your goals. You both know where you're at and where to go next. If you have any questions, you can definitely email me at sarahdougherty@theartofed.com. And I've also included for you guys a free handout that has a little more detail about these 8 assessments, and I've included some more. Thanks.